So welcome to this little module on Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is this very, very old system of care that will holistically address the mind, the body, and the spirit. And usually when I introduce Ayurveda, someone says, wait a minute, okay, mind, body, spirit, that's yoga. So Ayurveda is the big overarching umbrella, and yoga comes within it. So mind, body, spirit, that's something that ties all of us as human beings together. We all have a body, we all have a mind, and we all have a spirit. And we all have unique ways that we approach taking care of those three parts of us. Some people treat them very separately and want to do things to care for their body. They do things that focus on their mind, and they do other activities that are focused on their spirit. Some people are a little more prone to take care of one more than the other. But what Ayurveda teaches us, as does the path of yoga, is that we need to see ourselves as whole beings. Whole beings. Just like the moon is whole, regardless of what phase it is in and what amount of light that you see in the night sky, we are the same way. We are whole, holistic beings. And we really can't prescribe something to our well-being or to our self-care for just one part of us. Because we truly are these holistic, unified, harmonious creatures. We have to take care of the mind and the body and the spirit as if they are one. And that is truly what Ayurveda teaches us. So Ayurveda does a lot when you think about just the habits and the patterns of life. But the first thing I want to tell you is that it may be some 5,000 years old, but it is still incredibly relevant and incredibly meaningful for us today. And not only is it incredibly relevant and meaningful, but it's also incredibly practical. I hear people say oftentimes that I can't practice Ayurveda. I live in this very contemporary society. Restaurants that I go to and places that I frequent, they don't cater to that. And maybe 20 years ago, that might have been the case. But as a human race and as a culture, we are getting smarter. We are learning from our past mistakes, and we're beginning to take care of ourselves a little bit better. And so you'll find options all throughout our world that actually make an Ayurvedic approach to your living incredibly doable, incredibly realistic. So within Ayurveda, we learn about patterns for how we eat, patterns for how we rest and sleep, patterns for how we move or don't move our bodies, patterns for how we breathe. And there's also a place that I always like to make sure people understand that there are also patterns for how we adjust and modify our activities and our commitments and our schedules at different times of the year. So it's not enough just to know about exercise. It's not enough just to know about food and nutrition and about how to process things and how to gain nutritional value from what you take in. But it is also critical to know, where are you seasonally? Where are you seasonally within the calendar year, the times of year? Where are you seasonally within your own growth and development? What stages of life are you in? So Ayurveda asks us to look at all those moving parts. So it's not just enough to decide that you're going to eat vegetables. You have to know when's the right time and at what temperature do you cook them, and when during the day is it best for you to eat, and when during the year is it best for certain kinds. And then when do you need to make sure that you're sleeping and resting, and what patterns and habits do you have? And you're already thinking, okay, it's just too much. But the most important thing I can tell you about Ayurveda is put yourself first. Put your well-being, your self-care, your health first. And when you can make your well-being and health number one priority, number one, it's not selfish. But number two, all of these things get a lot more manageable because you start to make choices that are healthy for you. And you don't worry about having to write down and count and journal and do all these things that seem very dogmatic and pedantic. It just becomes a part of your lifestyle because you've put your well-being first. So as I go through just these first introductory pieces about Ayurveda, I want to tell you it could take us days and days and days of video modules to actually just scratch the surface of it. But I want to tell you just enough, not to be dangerous, but just enough to have a sample of what this kind of mindset could really do for you. Not so much as a learner, but as a human being. So just begin to think for a second. What do my food patterns look like? So just think. What's your heaviest meal of the day? What times of day do your meals occur? Do you prepare your own meals, or do you eat things that are already processed and made for you? What's your bedtime? What's the time that you get up? Does that matter what day of the week it is? What do your exercise patterns look like? How do you and when do you move your body? How do you breathe, especially in times of high stress and tension and conflict? And how do you adjust when different seasons of life and seasons of the year come? Or do you? So just think about just any or all of those things about yourself. And I will tell you that Ayurveda, number one, will help you to learn about yourself and know yourself better. Because it's really hard to put your own well-being first when you don't even know the first thing about yourself. And we see all these ads and all these things in our culture that say everyone should do this and everyone should do that, and you'll get this result. And nothing, you can be further from the truth. What works for me in this stage of life that I'm in, with this constitution, this dosha, which we'll talk about, that I have, and this season of where I am in the calendar year right now, and just all these different things that I know about myself, what works for me to achieve this will not be the same thing that will work for you. So Ayurveda is incredibly individualized. It doesn't look like a mom who cooks 3 different meals for her family to make sure everyone gets what they need. It is about truly understanding ourselves and making conscious, intentional choices, both for ourselves and then also if we have a family for whom we're responsible. It's good, healthy choices. It's all about the mind, the body, and the spirit, and trying to live a holistic approach to this crazy, busy life that we've all found ourselves in. So there's a statement in Ayurveda that I like to share that says, in Ayurveda, food is medicine. How we eat and what we eat can do 2 sets of things. How we eat and what we eat can improve our health. It can improve our digestion. It can increase and boost our immunity. And it can actually lengthen our longevity. It can add years to our life. But how we eat and what we eat can also decrease our health, negatively impact our immunity, and actually shorten our longevity. And I don't know about you, but I intend to be here for a long time. I intend to do things consciously that will not only allow me to live a long time, that will allow me to thrive in this body that I've got, in this life that I've got, in this mind, in this spirit, in this being that I am. I want to learn to thrive. So it's not about just aging and getting older. It's about whatever phase I'm in, making conscious choices so I still thrive, so my immunity is still high, so that I still feel the health within my mind, body, and my spirit. So the underlying principle in Ayurveda is that each of us has 5 different things within us. We all have them. It's just a matter of how much of each do we have. And so those 5 things are our elements. You hear a lot about the elements that are within the universe, the elements that are a part of us in this great world where we live. And so those 5 elements are earth, air, space, or sometimes called ether, fire, and water. Let me say that one more time. Earth, air, space or ether, fire, and water. And so each of us is born with a certain compilation of those elements within us. And what we call that is our dosha. But even more than that, there's something called your prakruti. P-R-A-K-R-U-T-I, your prakruti. It's a Sanskrit word that means your primary dosha. So how I was born 50-something years ago, it was already determined. I can't put more vegetables in my body to become more this. And I can't run and exercise and do more cardio to become more that. It's already done. Just like you're born with the chromosomes that are within you, your constitution or your dosha was already decided. You were born with this beautiful mathematical equation of those 5 elements. We all have them all, but each of us has our own unique thumbprint of how many and what percentage is within each one of us. So you've all taken, I'm sure, dosha assessments. And all you want to do is, okay, Kelly, tell me, what does this mean for me? What should I eat? What shouldn't I eat? And when should I sleep and when shouldn't I sleep? And what should I do with my body? Because this is my dosha. So the first thing I want to tell you is know your dosha. But number one, don't make it an excuse and don't get hung up on it. There are some patterns and habits of life that Ayurveda teaches us that quite frankly are just common sense. That they teach us that are good for all of us. And then there are unique, specific things within each dosha that we need to be mindful of. And I can tell you that within my dosha, which I'll share in just a minute, how I make considerations and choices for myself in the summer months is very different than how I make choices and considerations in the winter months, just because of the elements that are within me. The amount of rest that I get also fuels or causes to go into crazy levels, if I'm not careful, the dosha that's a part of me, the constitution, the elements that are within me. So everything that we do, the choices we make, they all actually inform how this dosha resides within us. So as we go through life, just like with your chakras and your energy systems and your energy wheels that are within you, there are things that we can do to balance our doshas, and there are things that we do to imbalance them. And chances are, if Ayurveda is new for you, and yoga is new for you, your doshas are probably a little bit out of whack. You're going to find out what it is that you have, and you're going to realize, oh goodness, this is what I've been doing. And without even realizing it, I was sending this into overdrive, or I was understimulating this. So it is about knowledge. It's not about guilt. It's not about feeling bad about choices you've made. But from here on out, you have knowledge. And knowledge creates awareness. And awareness creates responsibility. So now that you know, what will you do about it? So I want to just read to you just these 3 quick descriptions that I love. I've never found a different way of saying that I think is better. But I want to tell you the 3 primary doshas, what elements make them up, and then read you this description that is so succinct and so concrete that I think it will help you to understand a little more about yourself as we go forward. So the 3 doshas, Vata, Kapha, and Pitta. So Vata, V-A-T-A. Vata is primarily made of the 2 elements of air and space, or ether. So Vata, light. Imagine something that is primarily made of air and space, how light that must be. So that's Vata. Kapha, Kapha, K-A-P-H-A. Kapha is primarily made of earth and water. So very different. Can you feel the difference in the heaviness between the 2? The air, the space, the earth, the water. And the third one I say for the last because that one is mine, and that is Pitta, P-I-T-T-A. And the primary elements for Pitta are fire and water. And if anybody knows me very well as you're listening to this, you know that within my Pitta self, there's a whole lot more fire than there is anything else. So again, just picture it. The lightness of the air and the space, the heaviness, the grounding of the earth and the water, and then the whew of the fire and the water, the Pitta. So listen to these 3 descriptions. Vata. The word to remember about Vata is movement. Just picture it. You can't see air, but you can see the movement of air. You can't see space, but you can see things moving across our sky and space. So the word that I have seen and I love to associate with Vata is movement. The word for Kapha that I love, this translation that I've found that I've just stuck with for a while, the word for Kapha is protection. Think about that. The grounding of the earth, the heaviness, the holding down, protection. And then Pitta, we know what fire does and we know what water does. It changes things. And so the word for Pitta is transformation. So Vata, movement, Kapha, protection, Pitta, transformation. And so just to go a little bit deeper, it says Vata, space and air create transportation, movement. So a Vata will move just like the wind does. For Kaphas, earth and water create protection and structure and stability. Kapha is protection. And then Pitta, fire and water create transformation, metabolism. They heat up the body and they heat up the mind. Pitta is transformation. And so if you had to think about which season is most closely associated with each of these 3, just think for a second. Summer, winter, spring, and fall. If you had to guess, which is which? So I'm sure the most obvious is Pitta, especially if you live anywhere where the weather gets hot in the summer. Pitta is summer. And that does not mean that the only time I can thrive or do things is in the summer. In fact, I have to be really careful in the summer because fire makes a whole lot of fire. But Pitta is most closely associated with fire. Think about Kapha, earth and water. That's the late darkness of winter, moving toward the spring. So think about it, the late darkness of winter, and as the water element, moves towards spring. Think about whenever you're in the mountains. My sister lives in the mountains, and when the snow begins to melt, when they've gone from the cold darkness of winter, and all of a sudden the water gently moving down those mountains as the snow melts. There's your Kapha. And then the description for Vata, or the season for Vata, is fall and early winter. So summer has ended. The air is crisper and cooler and a little bit lighter. The days are not nearly as long. The light is not as hot, as warm. So Vata is our fall, moving into the early parts of winter. So the main thing I want you to realize is that within these three doshas, don't get hung up on this is just who I am. Because I could walk around the world all day long and just have my excuse of, well, this is just my Pitta fire self, and I'm sorry if my fire is too hot for you. Okay, that's not what the knowledge is for. So what we need to do is we need to take what we know about ourselves and make good, conscious choices. And so there's a lot to learn about the doshas and about the whole study of Ayurveda. But the thing I really want to focus on just in these few minutes that we have is a concept that I think will help many of us to practically introduce this into our life. And it truly has nothing to do with food. Food is a whole nother topic with nutrition. It really has not a lot to do with exercise, because that is another whole topic in and of itself. It's about your schedule. And so that's something I think is really practical for every single one of us. So I would encourage you, at this point, just pause. After you hear my instructions, pause the video. Just take out a blank piece of paper, a sticky note, whatever you've got. And I want you to write down the first 5 to 6, 7 things that you do every single morning. What does your morning look like? And I mean every single thing, not the big, not I get ready for work. Okay, every task you do from the moment that your eyes open, because that alarm is going off, or maybe not going off. From that moment, pause, press stop on the video for a second and write 5, 6, 7, 8 things. What do you do consistently every single morning? Okay, so welcome back. There's a word that I'd like for you to write down and remember and really begin to learn a little more about. And that word is called Dinacharya. Dinacharya. So it's Dinacharya. Dinacharya. So Dinacharya is actually, if you were to translate it into the most basic terms for us, it's your morning routine. Now, can you have a Dinacharya at night? You bet you can. But we encourage people when they start on this path of Ayurveda to begin with their morning routine. Because oftentimes our evening routines are dictated by how the day has gone. And sometimes our evening routines get a little scattered and a little inconsistent. So Dinacharya, that's your morning routine. So as you look at those things that you do every single morning, I want you to begin to think of how you can maybe shift some things. So just for example, one of the things that I do in the mornings is I go to bed with a glass of water by my bedside table. Now for sometimes that's because in the middle of the night when I get up to go to the bathroom or whatever, I wake up and I'm thirsty and I want water. But there's a bigger reason for that. I leave a glass of water next to my bed, and even if it has ice in it before I go to sleep, by the time I've woken up, my ice has melted and my water is room temperature. A lot of times I'll actually take lemon and I'll squirt it in that cup so it's already sitting there and it's just on my bedside table. And the very first thing I do after I brush my teeth, because I'm one of those crazy people, I can't do anything until I brush my teeth. Now, if you're not crazy like me, you can drink your water first thing. But what happens in our bodies, we need processes to get started. We need to get yesterday's stuff out of us. Yesterday's drama, yesterday's gunk, yesterday's nutrients that we couldn't quite process. We got to get them out. And so by drinking a glass of lukewarm or room temperature water, especially with a little bit of lemon in it, you'll start the processes of the body. So what I do every morning, first thing, I'm going to tell you my Dinacharya. It's going to get a little bit like TMI. First thing I do is I go to the bathroom. First thing, go to the bathroom, empty my bladder. Second thing, I brush my teeth. So think about it. I'm getting rid of yesterday's stuff. I've gone to the bathroom. I've eliminated. I've emptied my bladder. I've brushed my teeth. First thing. Now, I know some of you are saying, yeah, I don't brush my teeth till after breakfast or right before I go to work. Okay, I do it immediately because those two things get rid of yesterday's stuff immediately. The third thing I do is I continue to get rid of yesterday's stuff. I scrape my tongue. So if you don't know what a tongue scraper is, I was going to bring it in here and show you, but I thought that it really would be TMI. But you can Google it. Google a stainless steel tongue scraper. And so every morning I get up, and when I finish brushing my teeth, I get my tongue scraper, put it at the very back of my tongue, and I pull down. And wouldn't that have made a fun video for you to see? The gunk and the film that comes off my tongue. But I think, oh my gosh, what if I had not done that? I would have brought that gunk into today. So my first 3 activities in my morning, I've already gotten rid of yesterday's stuff. I empty my bladder, I brush my teeth, I scrape my tongue. Then I drink my glass of water. Now I'd love to tell you I drink coffee first thing because I love coffee, but you don't start your body with hot things going in, or else those processes that you want to have started are going to be stunted. No matter how good the coffee is, you really need to wait. And I'm not going to tell you what the timeline is of how long you have to wait. Some people will give you actual minutes and actual recommendations. For me, what I have found is I drink my water and then I go on about my business. So I've drank my water and then I go and I have rituals that I do every morning. I go in there and the cat and the dog follow me. The dog goes outside. So Cash is outside. I feed Yogi the cat. He has a spot. He goes for his food. While he's eating, I get Cash's his bones. He has a toothbrush bone that he chews, and then he has his 2 little milk bones. So again, he's getting rid of yesterday's stuff too. That's his Dinacharya. So that's my ritualistic stuff. The coffee pot is already set on a timer. It'll be taken care of whenever it's time. So I go on about my business and I get my dog and my cat taken care of. And by then I've already drank my water and I'm ready for the next parts of my morning. So think about all the activities I've already had. Haven't put a lick of food in my mouth yet. So then I have quiet time. I have my meditation time. I would love to tell you that it's exactly the same time every day, but it's not, because some mornings I teach sunrise yoga. And so my meditation time occurs a lot earlier on those mornings than it does on the other mornings. But for all of my mornings, unless something has gone on that I'm just really out of sorts and my sleep patterns are off, which don't happen hardly ever, I do my meditation time before the sun comes up. So I'm awake before the sun rises. Even on the mornings that I don't teach sunrise yoga, I'm still awake before the sun rises. And yes, that's even on the weekends. Because what Ayurveda is going to teach you as you learn more is that your body only needs a certain amount of sleep. And the body types or constitutions that think they need the most sleep are really the ones that need the least amount. We're not going to talk about sleep though, but just know that is one thing that's coming in this study of Ayurveda. So I get up and I have my meditation time and I set the tone for my day. And again, I let go of whatever was going on yesterday. I have some mantras that I chant, or I have some mantras that I play, and it helps me to kind of cleanse out whatever's clogging up my mind, just to hear the repetition of the mantra. So all those practices are all designed to release yesterday, so today can be its own. And then depending on what day of the week it is, 4 out of the 7, I consistently teach asana. I teach physical yoga. So Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, I go to the studio and I teach yoga. And 3 of those days I arrive before the sun ever comes up, and we finish teaching most days before the sun's up. Sundays a little bit later, but I do go and teach physical yoga 4 days a week. Now I would love to tell you that I do physical yoga on those days in the middle that are off. But right now what John and I have done is we've made that time that we spend together. And so I have said that my 4 physical practice mornings, because I also have physical practice in the evenings, that my mornings of Tuesdays and Thursdays are our time to be together. So once he's up and he's gone through his Dinacharya and we have joined each other on the back porch, the coffee is now brewed and we're ready to start our time together. So I still have a consistent schedule, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I don't do physical practice. I don't physically move my body. I use that for my time of connection to the person that's the most important to me. So all that's happened. On most mornings, I'm an hour or two, I'm 2 hours in and I still haven't put a bite of food in my body. And then it's time to eat. So on sunrise yoga days, when I come home, I've been up since about 4:45. I get home about 7:15 and then it's time for coffee. On the days when I don't teach, the coffee comes a little bit sooner, but it never comes before the water. The water comes first. And what I have learned is that when I do those things, the elimination piece of my body also kicks in other ways. It's not just about emptying my bladder anymore. And I didn't tell you this in the beginning, but Ayurveda is also about how you go to the bathroom, how you poop. That is part of life. And if you don't do it, you will be unhealthy. You'll be filled with disease and sickness. So we need to do things that ignite the different processes and systems in our body. Because if you don't take care of the physical, the mind and the spirit will not have what they need. So Dinacharya, it's really, really important. So I would encourage you to begin to think, what does my Dinacharya look like? You didn't even know you had one, but you do. It's on that piece of paper you just wrote down. What are your rituals? What are the things you consistently engage in? And then look at all those and some of the examples that I gave you and pick one thing that you can shift or edit or get rid of or add. Maybe your one thing will be, I will wake up before the sun. And maybe you'll say, I will do anything except wake up before the sun. So maybe I'll scrape my tongue. Or maybe I'll put a glass of water next to the bed and I will drink water before I put anything, even if it's tea, put anything hot into my body. I will flush my system with good water. So there's a lot you can learn about Dinacharya. There's a lot of places you can study it. We'll continue learning together. I'll continue to bring you tips and tools and ideas along the way. But the most important thing is, know you. If you're a mom of a kid that you've got to get ready for school, your Dinacharya is going to look very different than mine does. Sadly, it probably means you're going to have to get up a little bit early, or all of your time in the morning is going to be focused on someone else. You still need time to process for you. Process yesterday's stuff to be the very best version of yourself you can be for the kiddos that you've got to get ready for school. So Ayurveda, it is not a perfect science. It's also not a fine science. It is a life science. And it understands that life is messy, but we need schedules and routines to provide consistency. Depending on what your dosha is, what your primary dosha, your prakriti is, stability will be more important to you maybe than for others. But I will tell you, even though a vata might tell you that stability is not really their locus of control doesn't exist in stability, think about if you're made of air and space primarily, how empowering and comforting stability could be. And not stability that life is boring and calm all the time, but stability in the sense of I have a routine. It's not rigid. It's comforting. It's empowering. And guess what time I go to bed? I go to bed in time to make sure I can sleep 7 hours and get up at 4:45. So my Dinacharya, my morning activity, inform what happens at the end of the day. I don't go to bed when I'm done or when I'm exhausted. I go to bed determined by when I need to get up. I sleep 7 hours, sometimes 6.5, but 6.5 to 7 hours. That's what I sleep. And that's a system and a schedule I've had for years. My body's become conditioned to it. It's not because I'm old, and that's not why I get up early on the weekends. It's because I've trained my body to process things this way. It gives my spirit stability and calm to know that consistently I've got some patterns that I can rely on. So there's a lot. Find out what your dosha is. Start to learn a little bit more about it, but don't use it as an excuse. Don't let it handicap you, and don't let it constrict you. Within your dosha, you can thrive. For example, I'll give you one more thing and then we'll close this out. As a pitta, if there were 20 characteristics and I took the survey, 19 of mine would turn out fire. Guarantee you, because I am pitta squared, cubed, quadrupled, something. Knowing that about myself, I live in a state where summer temperatures are, it's October here now, and it's still incredibly hot. Summer temperatures are crazy hot. Humidity is crazy high. I love the sun. So I know about myself that if I heat myself up on the outside, because I love the vitamin D and I love being out in the sun, I have to make sure that what I'm putting in me during those times is not hot. Because I'm also a Cajun girl. I can't eat fire hot foods in the middle of summer knowing that I'm a pitta. Now I can, but I'm going to be miserable. So there are choices you can make, and just know there's going to be consequences because of them. So I may choose to do this knowing that I really want this, but every time I do those and make those choices, I decide next time, I don't want to do that again. And then it gets to be longer and longer gaps in between some of those not good choices. So as you learn more about yourself, it's going to help you to make really conscious and intentional decisions for yourself. It doesn't mean you can't ever drink that drink that you love to drink, or eat that food that you love to eat, or do that thing, or whatever those things are. Just know that once you understand how those things function within you, just know there's going to be some consequences of some of those choices. But then you can make new choices the next time. All right? So Ayurveda is the science of life. It is about the holistic approach to me as one harmonious human being, mind, body, spirit, all working together. Take the knowledge. Remember, knowledge creates awareness, and then awareness creates responsibility.